Motorists across Britain have been met with long queues and empty fuel pumps, causing chaos and frustration. While there's no shortage of fuel across the country, there are difficulties transporting it due to a lack of drivers, and the situation's been worsened by panic buying.
I rang up from 5 o'clock looking for petrol, but there wasn't any available.
I've been to 4 garages in Kiddy and they were all closed.
The chaos has left the UK scrambling for necessities and essential workers as factors including Brexit and the COVID-19 pandemic converge to create a supply chain crunch. The Prime Minister Boris Johnson has mobilised the army in case it's needed to help relieve the pressure on petrol stations across the country, and he's offered thousands of visas to foreign truckers to combat a driver shortage. Ian Dunt is a columnist at the I newspaper. Ian Dunt, I can only imagine the British public's tolerance for another crisis is pretty low.
Well, they're getting hit by multiple crises all at the same time, to be honest. I mean, we've got sharply rising gas prices that are knocking onto the consumer. We've got shortages, especially in fuel. That's by far sort of the most acute of all of them. But these crises on drivers are also leading to empty shelves on the supermarket, inability to get basic goods. We're seeing inflation start to spiral potentially out of control. We're seeing tax rises, we're seeing benefit cuts. And what all of these crises have in common is they reduce the standard of living of the British population. So to be honest, any day you open up a newspaper, there's either a new crisis or an old crisis that has become more severe overnight.
What is the root of it? Is it to do with Brexit? Is it to do with COVID? Is it to do with global forces? What is it?
It's a mixture of things. So you take the shortage of drivers. The shortage of drivers is really why we're seeing the long queues outside of sort of petrol stations, because they're not able to get the petrol to the station. Now, that is to do with COVID and Brexit impacting at the same time. COVID led to a lot of European drivers, predominantly Eastern European drivers, predominantly Polish people, deciding that they wanted to go home. About 13,000, 14,000 heavy goods drivers left because of COVID, wanting to basically be with their family. Now, the thing that changed while they were away was that Britain left the European Union. So suddenly, what was free movement, you can come, you can go as you please, became a very laborious bureaucratic process of securing a visa, which they anyway were not entitled to, because truck driving is considered, it isn't as a matter of as it happens, but it's considered a low-skilled job. So Brexit then impacted on COVID. The thing is, the government was warned of this. I mean, if you look at the Road Haulage Association, they've been spending 5 years telling the government, look, you really do need to come up with a solution for what you're going to do after you execute Brexit when it comes to drivers. They ignored those warnings for years. The pandemic hit. They were told by businesses in private and in public, you can't do this in the middle of a pandemic. Please just extend the transition period out of the EU until COVID is over. They didn't go ahead with it. They refused to do it. And now we are where we are.
So what's the way out of the mess then?
You know, it's very, very hard. Like, it's really hard to find a solution. The government, one of the ideas behind Brexit was, right, we've used cheap foreign labour, this is the way it's discussed, cheap foreign labour in order to sort of batter down the wages for the domestic workforce. So the government is very resistant to the idea of handing out visas to Europeans to come help drive the trucks. However, it has now decided that it's going to do that. It's handed out about 5,000 visas, potential visas. And yet most Europeans think, well, why would I come back? If I can go to other European countries, their currency is not in such a bad state. I don't have to fill out any paperwork. And the British offer on visas in a sort of, as if they were trying to look like Scrooge in some kind of Christmas morality story, is that they would have to leave on Christmas Eve. So on Christmas Day itself, the gift of the British government to any European who came over to help us would be a deportation order. On that basis, not many people want to come. Immigration seems like, if it is going to be a solution, it's a long-term solution, and the government would have to go about it in a smarter way than it is right now. The only other way you can try and do it really is to try and improve conditions for lorry drivers. The washroom facilities that they have, the sleeping facilities that they have, the food that they eat, all of these things are in a terrible state of disrepair. And that, unfortunately, is a long-term job, which the government hasn't demonstrated any of the sustained intellectual capacity in order to execute.
Ian Dunt, thank you. Hi, I'm Lee Sales. Thanks for watching this story. If you'd like to watch more of 7:30's stories, they are on the left of your screen. And tap on the button below to subscribe and get the latest from ABC News.